Oh, me. Oh, my. What's a bald man to do? I don't have any hair left that I can rip out. Oh, my golly. Well, if there's one thing that you can say about Trump's economy is that it's not boring. It's not boring. You may not be able to afford to go to a movie, but that's okay. You can stay at home and get your own entertainment by watching the economy explode. Look at this. Look at this right here. The U.S. economy likely just had its worst quarter since COVID. That's winning for you. Beyond that, let's see here. Pfizer's CEO says tariff uncertainty is deterring further U.S. investment in manufacturing and R&D. Pfizer's CEO on Tuesday said uncertainty around President Donald Trump's planned pharmaceutical tariffs is deterring the company from further investing in the U.S. manufacturing and research development. If I know that there will not be tariffs, then there are tremendous investments that can happen in this country, both in R&D and manufacturing, he said, adding that the company is also hoping for certainty. Quote, in periods of uncertainty, everybody is controlling their costs as we are doing, and then is very frugal with their investment as we are doing, so that we are prepared for remit. So that's what I want to see, the CEO said. So basically, because there's uncertainty, they're not doing more investment. And on top of that, oh, look at this, real estate market. Home sales just posted their biggest monthly fall since 2022. So 2022 wasn't that far away, but that was during COVID. So yeah, we've had our worst quarter since COVID. CEOs aren't investing because they don't know what the hell is going on, and the property market is in a bit of a funk. Yay. That's the Trump economy for you. How's that going? You feeling comfortable now? Anyways, we're going to talk about more of this today. I get some people out there like, Eli, why are you talking about these subjects? Oh, I would like to talk about other subjects. I'd like to talk about Superbase. Superbase. It's like a framework for Postgres. That's interesting. I was going to do this whole video on discussing designing architecture around vibe coding, which I kind of think is a curious thing. My buddies who code, they've been talking about this. Again, the whole idea of microservices versus monolithic architecture in a vibe coding world. I'd like to talk about that kind of stuff. I really would. Really would. Yeah, nobody cares. Again, Every Monday, I do calls with you folks, right? I do calls 1 to 5 p.m. I sit down 4 to 6 sessions. It's like, okay, how can I help you? What are your questions about infrastructure? No, I don't have a question about infrastructure. Eli, how do I get a job? Oh, Lord. That's mainly the question I get. And again, if you have questions about solving problems, if you have questions about stacks and architectures and all that kind of stuff, that is enjoyable to talk about. That's fun to talk about. How to get a job? I can tell you how to solve problems. This whole getting a job thing, I don't know, it's a bit of a frustration deal. And again, the issue right now is we're running into this macro environment where getting a job is going to be more and more difficult. And the issue is that you're fighting macro. And the deal is you just can't beat macro. Macro will always win. So the issue is you have to figure out where to position yourself within this macro environment. And I think one of the big issues that we see nowadays, again, a lot of people are like, Eli, I don't want to hear about politics. Eli, I don't want to hear about politics. But especially with Trump, again, with Biden, and with Trump, the problem is that politics are affecting the macro environment in really significant ways. Again, there's some things that affect the macro environment in minor ways that you have to think about, but are not really that pivotal for most of you folks, right? So when Biden was using Title IX, the Title IX regulation for not discriminating against people based off of gender and a whole bunch of other things. When he was using Title IX in order to say that boys could be on girls' sports teams, right? Now that's his politics. That's politics, and again, that affects sports teams. That doesn't really affect the tech world too much. Again, the whole question of, what sign do you slap on your bathroom? Now, that's something that you do have to think about, right? If you're going to be a CEO, if you're going to be a founder, and you got a toilet, who can use that toilet? And you're like, what do you mean? Guess what? That's the fun of being a CEO. Oh, you think being a CEO is all about, you get to go out and you get to drink beer and you get to schmooze with people and you get to decide which systems your company gets to buy. You think that's what being a CEO is about. Au contraire, mon frère. 99% of being a CEO is doing things like figuring out what label goes on the toilet. You're like, what? Fuck. If you put the wrong label on the toilet, you could be sued for $1 million. Your startup might go bankrupt because you put the wrong sign on the toilet. That's a real world. Anyways, again, we talk about things like politics, and with that, it's like, this is just woke versus MAGA. That's kind of stupid. But the issue is, again, with politics, again, like what I said with the Biden administration, with requiring vaccinations. Again, here in Asheville, North Carolina, politics, where basically you had to wear a mask in any business environment for basically almost a year. And again, for somebody like me, that actually makes me sick. Trying to do teaching with a mask on literally makes me nauseous. Just how it is, right? But that was their politics. They were pushing politics with the questionable scientific backing, and that caused real issues for the business community. Again, if you look at the Biden administration, again, printing money. And again, not printing money for poor single mothers or fathers, poor single parents, right? If you have poor single parents, man, print the money. Again, kids need early childhood education. Kids need roofs. Kids need food. Kids need housing. Make sure our poor kids are dealt with. I used to be a poor kid. I had that lived experience. Feed that fucking poor kid. Anyways, again, that's not the big issue. But when families that are making $150,000 a year that had suffered no detrimental effect from COVID, all of a sudden they're getting stimulus checks because the government is printing money, right? That is politics. That is directly affecting the economy. You drive demand at the exact same time you've cut off supply, and idiocy will ensue, right? And the issue right now, like I say, we have the Trump administration doing whatever the hell the Trump administration is doing. Again, we have the tariffs. We have tariffs. We don't have tariffs. Those people have tariffs. Those people don't have tariffs. They've got some kind of tariffs. We got stacking tariffs. We got, again, we can't even figure out what the hell's going on. Again, we got China with 145% tariffs against all the stuff coming in the U.S. On top of the 145% tariffs, like there's also steel and aluminum tariffs. I guess those tariffs stack, or they did stack, and now they don't stack anymore because I don't think Trump thought about it long enough to figure out what that math actually looked like. So yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like we're told all there's tariffs, and then people don't really understand the tariffs. And then once they figure out the tariffs, they're like, holy crap, that's horrible. And then the Trump administration, like yesterday or something, just changed the tariff policy for auto manufacturers. So there's like this whole thing about, anything coming in, was getting tariffed at 10 or 20%, but then if it was steel or aluminum, that was like an additional 25%. So then stuff that was coming in that was steel and aluminum was getting tariffed at like 45%. And again, these are parts and these are inputs that go into U.S. manufacturing. That's what people don't understand. Like there's this whole idea, like this is going to be a renaissance for U.S. manufacturing. Look, the U.S. manufacturers literally can't get the supplies that they need. Trump is going to put the U.S. manufacturers out of business. Trump's ill-advised, senile plan is going to put our own manufacturers out of business, because that's just kind of how the supply chain works nowadays. And anyways, the reason I talk about all this is because it is going to affect you. When Bear Stearns fell back in 2008, I didn't give a damn about Bear Stearns failing. Boo-hoo, poor Bear Stearns. Right? When the housing market went to hell in 2008, I didn't really care, right? I had overpaid for my house, but I realized that there was already a cushion in there. It was like, oh, hey, things are going sideways about the way that I figured things were going to go sideways. Oh, well, I knew what I was doing. I can accept that loss. But then another domino fell, another domino fell, another domino fell. Oh, I saw the first two dominoes. I was really good with forecasting the first two dominoes. Oh my fuck, the rest of the dominoes. Didn't see those damn things coming. It's like the dominoes like go around the building and smack you in the back of the head. Right? And so that's why I talk about this stuff. Because again, the politics, especially in the modern world, and especially with a generation of presidents who all want to be the next JFK. Again, we have these boomers. We have the boomers. JFK was their godhead or whatever. They're the person they look up to. And so the issue is they all want to be the next JFK. They don't want to just come in and make sure the roads get built and make sure the schools get built and figure out the payment system for hospitals. Hey, could we have one president that comes in and says, in my 4-year term, I'm going to figure out how to rationalize paying for healthcare. Not even get it paid. I'm not even saying make it socialist. I'm not saying make it on yourself. I'm not even saying how it gets paid. I would like one president just to say, in my 4-year term, by the end of this, everybody who gets medical care in the United States will get a receipt for the medical care they received, and they will be able to understand what they got billed for. I mean, they may still be getting billed $200 for a fucking Advil, but they'll be like, wow, that Advil cost me $200. Because maybe if we can get to that point, we can get to actually fixing the medical system. But anyway, none of them want to do that. None of them want to do that. They all want to be the next JFK, and so ergo, we're getting these massive national policies where they put half an ounce of thought into it, and then it just kind of screws all of us. And it becomes an interesting thing, like when you start thinking about it from an employee mindset, right? If you're an employee, if you want to be an employee, what you have to realize is that you get hired by companies, right? Companies provide products or services to customers, right? They then hire you so that you can either make it more profitable to sell a product or service, or allow them to sell more products or services. That is your only job. That's what your actual job is. Your job isn't Active Directory or React or AI or Quantum, right? It is shipping more product or making the products you ship more valuable. That's what your actual job is. So the problem is, right? If the company that you're working for, if the customers for the company that you're working for aren't coming as much, aren't buying as much, then your company doesn't need to ship as much product. Ergo, do they need to hire you? Or, again, with a Pfizer CEO saying, let's say they look at it and they go, look, we think we have a lot of customers out there. We would like to grow. We would like to invest. But because of the insanity of the current administration, we do not feel comfortable. So even though they need to hire people, they're not going to do it. And again, that was one of the big issues after the dot-com bubble burst, right? During the dot-com bubble, a lot of these tech corporations, or a lot of corporations, hired people, unqualified people to do jobs because they just wanted asses in seats, essentially. After the dot-com bubble burst, one of the biggest problems there was that the companies needed tech support. They needed tech support. But they had been so burned by all these incompetent bastards they had dealt with during the boom that they refused to hire people for years after the bubble burst. Right? That's the kind of psychological stuff that happens. And that's why you need to be thinking about this if you want to be an employee, is these macro forces affect whether or not you're going to be able to be hired, and to understand what environment you're really going into. So anyways, at some point I'll do a video talking about infrastructure in a vibe coding world. But not today. Not today. If you don't know, or as you may or may not know, I'm known as Eli the Computer Guy. My current pride and joy is something called SiliconDojo.com. The idea is, what if high-quality technology education was simply as accessible as water? If you go to SiliconDojo.com, we have self-study courses. So we have Python, SQL, something called the Bottle Web App Framework. I'm currently working on the Introduction to Programming series. That should be done by the end of the week. So that is all there for you to take. If you want to take it. We do one-on-one sessions every Monday between 1 to 5, where I really would like to discuss more architecture stuff, but you know. Anyways, if you need help thinking about getting jobs or whatever else, I will talk to you about that too. And we also do group sessions on Zoom, where we do classes sometimes. And we also, right now, we're doing a lot of guests. So we had a CEO of an MSP up in the Yukon came onto the show. A couple weeks ago, we had a business development guy come onto the show, the class last week, and we're going to have the CEO of a development company hopefully come on next week. So those are the kinds of things we do at SiliconDojo.com. So you can go and take a look at SiliconDojo.com. And with that, we're going to take a look at consumer outlook. Consumer outlook. Because this is going to be a big problem. So coming from CNBC, as you can see here, consumer outlook hits lowest since 2011 as tariff fears mount, conference board survey shows. So literally, basically, the consumer outlook. This is how people feel about the economy under Donald Trump. And basically, how they feel about the economy under Donald Trump is that it's a goddamn disaster and nobody knows what the hell they're doing. Yay! Are you tired of winning yet? Are you tired of what are we winning? I really would like to know what game we're playing. I think we're playing the wrong game. Maybe that's the issue. Maybe Trump just never explained to us what game we're playing. Hey, you know what game we're gonna play? We're gonna play the game of losing. You're gonna win so much, you're gonna get exhausted of winning at the game of losing. We are going to prove to the world that we can lose better than everybody else. Maybe that's the game I don't know what game we're playing. Apparently we're playing 5D chess. I'm going to put this out there though. You know the issue with 5D chess? People are like, well, Eli, you're playing checkers and he's playing 5D chess. Do you know what the problem with 5D chess is? I'm just going to make this really simple. It doesn't exist. You're telling me he's playing a game that doesn't exist. Anywho, why all of this matters, again, we'll talk about the consumer outlook in a second, is because how people feel about the economy drives how they interact with the economy, right? Money is like water. The faster it flows, the healthier it is. The more stagnant it is, the more poisoned it is. Right? Basically, with an economy, it's not about you having $100 or $1,000 or $1 million. It's about the flow of the money, right? You get money, you spend money. You get money, you spend money. You get money, you spend money. You spend money at the cafe. You spend money repairing your car. You spend money on rent. Those people spend money on something else. They spend money on something else. They spend money on something else. They spend money on something else. And you got this nice little virtuous cycle going where the money comes in. You know that you're going to get more money, ergo you spend money. You know you're going to get more money, ergo you spend money, and that's basically a good old system. The issue is right, when you're not sure if you're going to get your next paycheck, if you're not confident about where the economy is going, instead of spending the money, you go, well, maybe I'll save a little bit more. Maybe I won't spend as much money. But when you don't spend as much money, that means you're not buying the coffee. That means you're not buying the beer. That means you're not buying the next thing, which means the person that gets paid to supply you that product is not getting that money, which means, ooh, the economy is slowing down. Maybe we have to tighten our belt, which means they're not paying somebody. And that's where everything kind of grinds to a halt. I think about this in the real world from back when I did DECA. So back when I was in high school, I did a vocational program. It's called DECA, Distributive Education Clubs of America. Basically, we competed in entrepreneurship. I competed at the national level entrepreneurship. I went up to Detroit way back in the 90s. True story. But anyways, so we used to go to Hagerstown to do our competitions. We'd compete in interviewing and we compete in business plans and that kind of stuff. Anyways, we were there and we had some congressperson there. And he gave us a little spiel, and then afterwards we could go up and talk and ask questions. So me being me, I was like, ooh, I get to poke a congressperson. I start poking people young. Right? Give me information. So I go up and I start poking this congressperson. And this was back in the George Bush era. So George Bush had just been kicked out of office. Bill Clinton had been elected. And the big buzzwords at the time was it's the economy is stupid, right? So basically, George Bush Sr., when he was in office, we had gone into a recession, and then basically he just kept saying that the economy was fine. The economy's fine, the economy's fine, the economy's fine, even when everybody, even in the pre-internet age, knew the economy wasn't fine. And so the phrase at the time was, it's the economy stupid, because look at how stupid this president is. He doesn't even know that we're in a recession, right? Get him out, put Bill Clinton in. So anyways, I'm talking to this congressperson, I'm poking him. And so I want to know why our president was so stupid. Right? So I was like, yeah, so why was Bush so stupid, saying this whole thing, trying to brush over the recession when obviously it's the economy. Well, the interesting thing is the congressperson said, well, the problem is the president ran into a problem, right? So there's a reality. So the reality is that we were going into a recession, and he knew we were going into a recession. But as leader, right, as president, the problem is if he comes out and says we're in a recession, what will happen next? And so basically the congressperson looked at me and said, so if we're going into a recession, what would you do if we're going into a recession? And so, again, being a good person, be like, well, I'd save money, right? I'd save money. If we're going into a recession, I would save money. I wouldn't spend as much money. And again, we're actually in an entrepreneurship competitive environment. And he's like, okay, well, but if you save money, that means you're not spending as much money, right? Of course. It's like, well, then how are the businesses that you normally go to, how are they going to stay in business if you and people like you decide to stop spending money? And then what happens to their employees, and what happens to their vendors, and what happens down the pike until you get into this big old circle? And so the thing he explained was that with George Bush Sr., the idea was if he can do a Jedi mind trick to basically make people think we're not going into recession, then they would act like we weren't going into recession. Ergo, we would actually keep us out of a recession. Which I've always thought is kind of an interesting thing. And again, it's a curious thing from that whole leadership position. The whole idea is sometimes admitting to the truth brings on the truth. Sometimes lying about the current state of reality allows you to bypass the current state of reality, which again is how the world works. I'm not telling you it's a good system. I'm telling you it's a system we have, as an old white man once told me. So anyways, right? And so that's one of the big things to consider. Like when you look around and you see what's going on with the economy, so many times the economy is booming because people think the economy is booming. So many times the economy is failing because people think the economy is failing. And so much of it is just a psychological game. Again, why Why do you buy a certain product? I think about this with the Great Recession. I damn lost my mind, and I still tell the story, right? I knew a very wealthy person. I knew a wealthy person, right? And then during the Great Recession, do you know what they found out about? You know what they found about? And they were proud about it. They were proud. Target. They're like, I've really found out about Target. I mean, Eli, have you gone to Target? I was like, yes, I've gone to Target. Why are you going to Target? They have some really good deals there. It's very, right? Starts espousing about the value of Target. Wealthy person. Not upper middle, wealthy person. And so I'm sitting there trying not to groan as this person espouses upon the value of Target. They are really going to start buying more from Target because, since we are in this recession and we are all in it together. No, motherfucker, we're not. But anyways, since we're all in it together, I mean, going to the boutique and buying fancy stuff, right? Sashaying down the street with big old shopping bags. I mean, that is tacky as hell when people don't know how they're going to pay the mortgage. So, being part of the community, they're going to go and shop at Target. At which point I was just trying to leave till I said something really bad because there were boutiques that I actually really liked. Baltimore City had some very nice boutiques right before the Great Recession, and they were all going the hell out of business. And they were going all the hell out of business because, one, people didn't have money the way they did, and the rich people were finding out about Target. Because here's the thing. You know how to keep small businesses around? It's for rich people during economic disasters to keep buying from those places, right? The people with money, with the wherewithal, if they continue to buy from these vendors, that might allow the vendors to survive. If the wealthy people are like, hey, we're all in this together, and so they all go shopping at Walmart and Target, well, don't be surprised when your main street is empty of all the businesses because nobody's shopping there, right? And that's one of the things to consider is, again, you think about things like coffee or whatever. I mean, coffee is now $5 a cup of coffee. So somebody wanted to pick my brain, right? So we went up to the little cafe right up on the corner here. And I didn't really want much of anything. So we got 2 black coffees. We got 2 black to-go coffees, 16 ounces. Cost $12. Cost $12. Fuck. Anyways, right? So if you think we're going into a recession, right? If you think we're going into economic hard times, and it's costing $5-6 for a goddamn black coffee, how likely are you to say, you know what? I'm just gonna brew coffee at home today, or I'll just bring my coffee with me. But here's the thing, if you bring your coffee with you, then you're not buying that $6 cup of coffee. If you're not buying that $6 cup of coffee, the barista is not selling you a $6 cup of coffee. Ergo, why does the barista have a job? And I think that's one of the big issues to be thinking about is so much of the economy is psychological. Again, it's a fascinating thing that I think about with fancy cars nowadays. And I've talked about that before when I went out to buy an Audi, right? So back when I mattered, I don't matter anymore. This is all vanity metric. Everything you see here is vanity metrics. But at one point, I mattered on YouTube. And I made some decent money on YouTube. And so I had money, right? I had I had a wad of cash. And I was going to go out and buy myself an Audi. Not going to do a loan or anything else. I was going to plunk that cash on the table and buy myself a nice Audi. And the interesting thing is I went to the Audi dealership and I was looking at the Audis. And I went, because I was spending a lot of money, basically for the Audi nameplate. Maybe the engineering's better, maybe the leather is a higher quality, but I was in the Audis, and I was just like, I bought a titanium Ford Escape. I bought the highest quality Ford Escape that you could buy for a fraction of the cost. Because at the end of the day, again, in the modern world, like don't get me wrong, like when I was young, like the difference between a Toyota and an Audi or a BMW there was a world of difference. The difference between a Ford, right, and a Mercedes was a world of difference. Again, in the 20 teens or the 2020s, again, I have a Ford Escape. I love my Ford. Have I told you I have a plug-in Ford Escape? I love that vehicle. You're like, hey, Eli, what about a Mercedes? No. How about an Audi? No. How about it? No. Right? I love my Ford Escape. Fucking fabulous vehicle. I am a Ford Escape fanboy. Second one I owned. Love that vehicle. Anyways, but the interesting thing to be thinking about is, again, if you look in the modern world and the quality of vehicles at this point in time, like what is really the difference between a Ford and an Audi in 2025? Again, in 1975, world of difference. 2025, not so much difference. What is the difference? Again, that little nameplate on it and a few other things, right? Very, very low. Why do you buy an Audi? Because you want to be an Audi type person. Right, again, we've talked about this before with lifestyle brands, right? So manufacturing basically became rather trivial by about 2000, right? And so one of the big issues that manufacturing companies had is how do you convince people to buy more for products, right? If you look at Patagonia and if you look at North Face and you look at Mountain Hardwear and you look at Walmart, they all have fleece jackets. And all of those fleece jackets are about the same, right? So how do you make the Patagonia jacket $200 and the North Face jacket $175 and the Mountain Hardwear jacket $150 and the Walmart jacket $25? If they're all about the same, because it's lifestyle brand. You're a Patagonia person. I'm a Patagonia person. I'm a Mountain Hardwear person. I'm a Walmart person. Oh, and there is snobbery for Walmart people. Don't act like wealthy people are the only snobs. And it's not reverse snobbery. I will say this, it's not reverse anything. Snobbery is snobbery. You have Walmart snobs. I would never spend $200 on a jacket. That's fine. You do you. But anyways, why we decide to buy things so much is the mentality, right? And so one of the things to consider about the economy is so many of the reasons that we get paid is simply because what people think they should do with their money. Again, I talk about this with Everyman IT. So years ago, back 2009, when I started doing videos, right? I created Everyman IT. I was an LLC back then. I had my own infrastructure, right? So I had my own Xeon servers and a co-location facility. I created a lot of the videos that made me popular on YouTube later. But I put all those up. I went through trying to get traction for about a year and a half. I tried to get traction. So I had like 100 videos. I had 100 classes, 30 to 90-minute classes, and people loved them. People loved them, right? So basically the idea was $25 a month. Right? So if you love these classes so much, if you say these classes are so good, and again, there wasn't a lot of competition back then, so pay $25 a month and you can get access to these video classes. And nobody signed up. After a month, I had like 6 signups. Oh, it was so sad. And basically what I heard from everybody back in 2009 is, Eli, nobody pays for anything online. Nobody is going to pay for online content. That was just a psychological thing. They were like, your content is great. Your content is amazing. Your content is better than what I'm getting in college. I'm paying $5,000 a semester to go to college. But what you're providing is online. Ergo, it's not worth $25 a month. Right? Now we fast forward to 2025. I put my little donor box link up. And you all just hand me money. Again, a few months ago, I literally got a $1,000 tip or donation or whatever for somebody. In 2009, people would not pay me $25 to get access to classes when it was behind a paywall. Now things are in front of a paywall or in front of a wall, no wall, whatever, and people are willing to give up to $1,000. Right? It's just a psychological thing. What are people willing to pay for? Why are they willing to pay for a coffee in some circumstances and not willing to pay for a coffee in other circumstances? How much are they willing to pay for a coffee? How much are they willing to pay for a beer? How much are they willing to pay for things? And when psychologically things start breaking down in their mind, the issue is that can be devastating to the economy. And again, that's where I talk about the dominoes falling. Again, with some of the stuff you may not care. Again, Eli, I'm in an infrastructure. I'm in a B2B infrastructure company. I don't care about any of this. Yeah, but again, if houses aren't selling, and the port, right? The ports, we're down 40% year over year in Western ports. They're down 40%. 700,000 truckloads of goods have not come into the country. You may not give a damn about truckers. You may not give a damn about Walmart. You may not give a damn about the ports. You may not give a damn about the housing. You may not give a damn about Pfizer. But when it's Pfizer and it's housing and it's ports and it's truck drivers and it's this and it's that, right? The psychological effect it has on people. And again, that's the thing to be thinking about, like even with the company that you're in, are they going to be comfortable investing in the future? They got $1 million, they got $100,000. Do you expend that $100,000 now, that $1 million now, or do you save that $1 million, right? If you're with a startup, and you've got a runway, right? So you got a runway, you got a $2 million runway. $2 million runway is supposed to last you a year. But how many startups die because they hit the end of the runway and they cannot get any follow-on funding, right? So you expected, right? The economy is getting better. We finally got the dead president out. We finally got America's first dead president out of office. You know, COVID is in the past. You know, the investment environment is supposed to be getting better. So you got your CEO, your founder, got the round of investment. You figure between a year to a year and a half of runway, and therefore they're spending money. Buy these servers, spin up these services, hire the UX designer, right? Because the idea being is once you get about 3/4 of the way through this runway, you go out to get a follow-on investment to keep you going, right? So we have a good idea. As long as we can prove our point, as long as we can hit our metrics, then when we get to the time point, we'll do our next we'll go out for our next funding round, we'll get that next funding round, and then we'll continue. But the problem is, again, with these economic disasters, what happens when you hit to the 3/4 of the way through your runway, and then the economy is just locked up? What happens when you go to wealthy people and they go, I love your idea. Man, your numbers, your metrics are just insane. I just don't feel comfortable writing a check right now. And the thing is, you're not going to know if you hit that point until 9 months from now, right? And so if you're a founder, you have to figure out what your spend rate is. You have to figure out what your budget is based off of what your expectation of the funding environment will be 9 months from now. So are you flush? Do you tell your engineers or whatever just to do whatever needs to be done, get the servers, spin up the services, and it will work? Or you're like, well, maybe not hire that additional engineer. Maybe use DigitalOcean instead of, building up your own little server farm or whatever else. And then how does that affect you as an employee? Again, these are the things to think about. Because you keep asking me. Jobs, Eli, jobs. I don't know, dude. I can tell you how to solve problems. I can tell you how to solve problems. The whole job thing, oh man, the job thing is about macro. Man, I remember, so again, back in like 2009, 2010, back when I had I wasn't sure how to make money off the whole education thing. So I still have my building for my business. And so I started doing like an apprenticeship program. So I still had all these computers and equipment and everything else. So the idea was you come and you learn, and it's one-on-one education, that type of deal. Literally, it was like 2009, 2010. I would have people call me up and they'd be like, okay, yeah, everything sounds good. So can you guarantee me a job at the end? And again, this is like 2009, 2010. And I'd be like talking to these people. I'm like, dude, I can't guarantee you a job at McDonald's. Like, the economy went sideways. Like, I can't guarantee you can make minimum wage flipping burgers, and you want me to guarantee you a job as like a network engineer. I can teach you to fix and build networks. I can teach you to fix and build computers. I can teach you domains and all that kind of stuff. Guarantee you a job? Hell no. Oh, if only I lied. I would be so much more successful in life if I just lie. I think I'd have to lie. I think I could probably just nod my head. Like, people would be like, oh, so I'll definitely be able to get a job at the end of this. Well, I didn't say yes. Just, I don't know, am I required to tell them that's fucking stupid? Anyways. That's the problem with being an aspie. That's the problem with it. My problem in life is I just don't just nod my head. Well, you know, I got a really good job. I got my start going through a boot camp, and that's done wonders for me. 10 years ago in an entirely different macro environment. Anyways. CNBC. Consumer outlook hits lowest since 2011 as tariff fears mount. Consumer attitudes about both the present and near future dimmed again in April as tariffs dented sentiment and confidence in employment hit levels last seen around the global financial crisis. Let's see here. Let's see. The board's expectation index, which measures how respondents look at the next 6 months, tumbled to 54.4, a decline of 12.5 points, and the lowest reading since October 2011. Board officials said the reading is consistent with a recession. So again, believe a recession into reality, and you too can have a recession. Quote, the three expectation components, business conditions, employment prospects, and future income, all deteriorated sharply, reflecting pervasive pessimism about the future, said Stephanie Gouchard, the board's senior economist for Global Indicator. Gouchard added that the confidence surveys overall were at levels not seen since the onset of the COVID pandemic. Indeed, the level of respondents expecting employment to fall over the next 6 months hit 32.1%, quote, nearly as high as in April 2009 in the middle of the Great Recession. That contraction lasted from December 2007 until June 2009. The level of respondents seeing jobs as hard to get rose to 16.6, up half a percentage point from March, while those seeing jobs as plentiful fell to 31% from 33%. Future income prospects also turned negative for the first time in 5 years. The downbeat views extended to the stock market, with 48.5% expecting lower prices in the next 12 months, the worst reading since 2011. Inflation expectations also surged at 7% for the next year, the highest since November 22. And again, that's one of the things to be thinking about. Again, if you're in the technology world and you're working for a startup company, again, startup companies are all about the exits. All about the exits. Again, either acquisition or IPO, right? Most people want the IPO. Well, here's the thing. If 48, almost 50% of the people think the stock market is going to go down this year, does that sound like a good time to IPO? Probably not. Driving the pessimism was fears over tariffs, which reached an all-time high for the survey. Recession expectations hit a 2-year high as well. In related data Tuesday, the Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that employment postings, and this is curious, employment postings in March fell to their lowest level since September of 2024. The Job Openings and Labor Turnover Survey showed 77.19 million positions, down from 7.48 million in February and below the Wall Street expectation for 7.5 million. So that's one of the things too. Again, we look at the whole unemployment rate. The unemployment rate is weird. Like, the unemployment rate is people who want to get a job and aren't employed, right? If you're underemployed or if you've just given up on society and a whole bunch of other things, you're not counted in the unemployment rate. So the curious thing here is about the posted jobs. So this is how many jobs our economy is posting, right? Went down from 7.48 million down to 7.19 million. So we've lost 300, right around 300,000 open positions, essentially. And yeah. So, I don't know. That's what we're looking at. That's what we're looking at. Our economy falling apart. Our economy falling apart. And nobody knows what to do. Again, at least with COVID, the idea was, well, we need a vaccine. Once we get a vaccine, then the economy will come back. Right? Again, it's a bit of a pipe dream. There's a whole bunch of stuff that went along with that whole vaccine debacle. But again, it gives you a point to shoot at. Right? Okay, we buckle down, we figure things out until they come out with a vaccine. Once the vaccine is deployed, we can get back to normal life. Again, there's a lot of stuff that goes with that. Not going to get into it. But psychologically, that at least gives you a target. The issue that we have right now is we have no idea. We have no... There will just never be a vaccine for Trump. The doctors have worked and worked and worked, and there will just never be a vaccine for Trump. So we have no idea. Again, we have no idea what's going to happen with the economy because Trump changes day by day. One minute, there are going to be tariffs. The next minute, there aren't going to be tariffs. The next minute, there are going to be tariffs. The next minute, the tariffs are delayed by 90 days. The next minute, the tariffs are this high. The next minute, no, the tariffs are down here. Again, the whole thing with like the silicon chips, right? It's going to be 145% tariffs out of China. Oh no, but computers and things, again, silicon. Okay, this is going to have an exemption from the tariffs, literally. So it's like 145%, but no, that's going to have an exemption for the tariffs. And then the next day, they're like, no, it's not going to have an exemption from the tariffs. We just have to come up with the policy for the tariffs or those, and that will come in a month or two. And then like the next day, Trump comes out and says, no, it'll come in a week or two. And that was like a week and a half ago. And that's the thing. We have no idea what the hell is going on. I mean, when the input costs for businesses can go from 0 tariff to 20% tariff to 50% tariff to 20% tariff to 145% tariff. Right. Again, like I say, the inputs for the auto industry. All right. So I guess they were stacking tariffs. Right. So you have this kind of tariff, from the country, and then you have the steel and the aluminum tariff apparently was being added on top. So it wasn't 20% or 25% tariff. It was ended up being 45 or 50% tariff. And this is for manufacturers. This is for Ford. This is for Ford. So Ford is having to pay 50% tariffs to get parts in so they can manufacture the American-made vehicles. But then Trump comes out and is like, oh, no, it's not going to be stacking. You're going to pay one tariff or the other. Right? We have no idea what's going on. And it changes day by day depending on whether he thinks we're getting yippee or not. And again, in that business environment, how comfortable are you? And then trickle down, like trickle down economics never works. Let me just put this out. Trickle down economics is a stupid idea. It's a stupid idea. Giving more money to rich people with the idea that it'll trickle down to poor people. There's only so many hours in the day. Like, again, have you ever thought about that? Again, like with me talking about buying a Ford versus an Audi. Like, just because the government lets you keep more money, it doesn't mean you're going to go out and buy a $300,000 car, right? If I get a tax break this year because of Trump, I'm not really going to change my spending habits. So you get dumped in the fucking bank or stocks, right? That's the reality. Like, it's not like, oh, wow, I got a few, 10, 20,000 more dollars. What am I going to do with it? Put it back in the bank, right? Trickle down economic just doesn't work. You know what works though? You know what works like a champ? Trickle down recessions. Man, you can do the math on that, right? Because basically you have the CEOs and you have the executives They see what's going on in the economic environment, and I don't feel comfortable investing in the economic environment. Ergo, we're not going to hire as many people. We're not going to take as many interns. We're not going to do the investment as we expected. Then you have the mid-level managers. They see what the upper level management is doing, and then they start thinking, oh, maybe I shouldn't buy a new house right now. Maybe I shouldn't buy a new car right now. Maybe we shouldn't splurge on that Disney World vacation this year because I'm getting concerned about the economy for what I'm seeing up there. And then you have the people below that, the actual workers, and their hours are getting cut and their benefits are getting cut. And so they're actually dealing with it. It's weird. It's the weirdest thing about our economic system. Money never flows down, but crap does. Crap does. We have a very interesting system. Money goes up and poop comes down. That's basically our economic system here. And so again, I say for you as an employee, something to be considering. And again, where do you position yourself in this type of world? Again, it's things to be thinking about, like consulting. During economic bad times, it's a good time to become a consultant, right? So if I'm running a company and I need services, I need UI, UX design, I need Active Directory, whatever else, right? If I hire somebody, right? So I'm going to hire somebody for $100,000 a year, plus benefits, plus taxes, right? But again, how much are they going to be working? Again, that whole KPI, the key performance indicator. Here's the deal. You come in and you say, I will give you the same results as a $100,000 a year employee, but I'll charge you $25,000 a year. But the thing is, you can deal with 8 of those clients, right? Because you go in, you automate some stuff, you use AI, whatever else. They are getting the results that they expected from a $100,000 a year employee. If you're able to get 8 clients, you're now able to make $200,000 a year and probably do less work and be more satisfied with it, right? It's one of those things to be thinking about. And that's where, again, in our economic system, this is like what's supposed to happen. Again, I think one of the biggest problems with our economic system is we don't teach anybody our economic system. I mean, you ever think about that really think about this for a second. Like Obama came out and was telling everybody to learn to code. Learn to code, learn to code, learn to code, learn to code. Never shut up about learning to code. At least for me, I don't know about you folks, but when I was in high school, I was never taught about the stock market. Right? The stock market drives our entire economy at this point, right? It drives our economy, and it's what all of our retirements are based off of, right? If you want to actually eat past 75 years old, you should probably understand how the stock market works, right? But the reality is, right, like everybody has to know how to learn to code, right? Everybody has to know how to do a Python function. But for some reason, actually understanding how our stock market works, well, come on now. And I think that's one of the big issues that we have is we literally do not teach our young people how our economic system works. And the idea with our system, again, it's a good idea on paper if you actually teach anybody how things work. Again, the whole idea of supply and demand, of creative destruction, right? The businesses go along doing what they're doing until they're no longer efficient. That's when the startups or whatever come in and basically they destroy your old businesses, right? You may have a good job now that had stability. You lose your job, but that gives you an opportunity, and it should be an actual opportunity to do something else. Right? That's how this system is supposed to work. Again, the whole thing, the prices of things go through the roof. So like fiber lines, again, dark fiber back from 99 and 2000, right? So there was a fiber boom, right? Everybody was going to be connected with fiber. They laid so much fiber, right? And then the dot-com bubble burst and all these fiber lines right? They hadn't even gotten hooked up, right? There had been so much investment in fiber that it never even got hooked up. There was the expectation it would get hooked up, but then the bubble burst before it got hooked up. So it's called dark fiber. Basically, fiber that simply had not been lit up, right? There is a big argument for Web 2.0. So YouTube and Facebook and that whole iteration of social media. Basically, there is a big argument that the reason that was able to be so successful is because essentially they were able to piggyback on all of this fiber that had been laid by the previous technology generation, and they were literally able to get it for pennies on the dollar. Right? Oh, it cost you $100 million to lay out all this fiber? Well, guess what? Nobody's going to pay you $100 million. We'll pay you $10 million. Well, right? But that's the thing. So Mark Zuckerberg, these investors are able to come in. They're able to buy that fiber. They're able to connect that fiber for pennies on the dollar. That then allows them to build the next generation of technology that then turns into the $300 billion Goliath that we have today. Right? And that's the idea. Everything booms, right? Booms in the housing market. Then the idea is the housing market, the bottom goes out of it. And then artists can go in. Again, you look here at Asheville. One of the sad things about Asheville, the prices going through the roof, is we had so many artists in Asheville because the economy of Asheville had previously tanked. Price for warehouse space and industrial space was dirt cheap. So then you could have artists come in, they could buy up or rent this old warehouse space for dirt cheap, and then they're able to do arts. And then that's one of the things that helped bring up the Asheville economy until it gets too big, and then we got a bust, and we go through this whole cycle. And I think that's one of the big issues with the United States is we literally do not teach our own people how our own system functions, which is a hell of a thing. So anyways, as this all turns into a mess, that's the thing to be thinking about. How can you bring value? Don't think about getting the job. Don't think about getting a job. Think about how you can bring value to companies. Think about how you can bring value to people. Maybe it's as an employee. Maybe it's as a contractor. Maybe it's as a founder. Maybe it's as a nonprofit organization, right? How can you bring tangible value to people using technological solutions? I think if you think about things that way, you'll do better. You'll do better. Again, as I say, right, when I started my little computer repair company, right? To be clear, I did not start a computer repair company. I was working at Mercy Hospital as a $10 an hour temporary file clerk. Well, this sucks. I put up some pull tab signs, right? People happen to need computer repair. Again, doing the videos back in the day, right? I was like, oh, hey, I see a value. On-demand video education, right? And that's the kind of thing to be thinking about, like in whatever you're doing, what can you do to provide value tomorrow? So anyways, there you go. There are some thoughts. Oh, jobs. I don't know. How do you get a job, Eli? I don't care. I just really don't fucking care. You go out there and you schmooze and you learn the stuff that the employers actually want, and you schmooze with the people that are actually hiring, and you create a paper trail to show that you can actually do what you say you do. That's really what it comes down to. And then you just grind until you can find a job. But anywho, that's all I gotta say. See y'all later.